So today, I'm talking about the expansiveness of the divine quality of oneness and how we can participate in that. But in order to do this, I want to do a little short recap from last week, because really this is the natural part 2 to the talk that I gave last week. But fear not, if you didn't see my talk from last week, I do invite you into that. But they both stand alone, so it's okay if you haven't seen it or heard it. Basically, I was talking about this idea of change versus transformation, and how change is inevitable. Also how if we want to change anything in our lives, lay something down, pick something up, have a change of heart, change anything, that we can do that. However, that does not necessarily mean it's transformed. Change and transformation are not the same thing. Change is the first step towards transformation. But transformation, the true transformation of something, is a spiritual experience, a conscious experience, and it requires that we make this journey, and in the middle there, it can be uncomfortable. I gave a couple of examples from nature, the idea of how a caterpillar becomes a butterfly and has to be in that uncomfortable, dark, gooey, gross, yucky, painful chrysalis. I pulled in a little ancient wisdom, how Siddhartha Gautama became the Buddha by sitting under the Bodhi tree and sitting with, as the story goes, all that he was being given by this demonic creature, Mara, who was teasing him, if you will, with tantalizing food and giving him visions of hurricanes and volcanoes and all of those things that would make anyone want to get up and leave. Of course, we understand that metaphor is all about sitting with our feelings and the things in this world of matter, this world of effect that sort of tempt, if you will, us back into old patterns, old ways of being. I brought in that beautiful, beautiful reminder from recovery. Those of you in recovery, whatever form of recovery, this beautiful idea of don't quit till the miracle happens, that idea of when we are kind of in this middle, under the Bodhi tree or in the chrysalis, moving from change to transformation, and how sometimes, our egos are afraid of what is new. They want to hold us to the old, to what we know, and sometimes that's why we unconsciously, inadvertently slip backwards. And I brought in this idea of just like meditation, if you can gently on the breath, bring yourself back to center. Feel the feelings, know that you are supported, the ground beneath you is holy, and the air you breathe is divine, and you will make it to that transformation if you can just be with what is. So that was last week, and that was the idea of our personal growth, our personal spiritual growth, and how we transform things in our lives. And there is naturally a call for transformation within us. It's one of the reasons I believe we incarnated here, to grow our soul, to evolve ourselves spiritually. But it's not only about us. It cannot be. I will get to that in a moment. It's about the transformation of the world. And there is a great call for that right now, a great call for that, not only in our own country, but in the world. It feels in many ways like that pendulum is slipping backward. Banning of books. What? Just in this week, the sort of week and a half-ish, I can name 3 things. In Florida, it's hard to even say it out loud, this group of people who are introducing curriculum in K through 12 schools that actually state that slavery had benefits. What? That's hard for me to even say out loud, In Texas, immigrants and asylum seekers, refugees coming from places of great violence with babies on their backs, not being given water in over 100-degree weather, in the middle of the night putting up barbed wire to literally physically harm them. Talk about that pendulum. Talk about the need for transformation. A week ago, a 19-year-old girl was sentenced to 3 months in jail for terminating a pregnancy. She's 19. Not okay. Not remotely okay. And as spiritual people on this path of transformation, we are here not only to transform ourselves, but we are here to transform ourselves so that we can participate in the transformation of the world. Are you with me? Yes, yes. Dr. Martin Luther King said, I believe what the self-centered have torn down, the other-centered will build up. I believe what the self-centered have torn down, the other-centered will build up. There are so many places right now in our country and in the world, groups of people that are otherizing, that are separating themselves from others so that they can do things like not give people who have walked for months on end water in the blistering heat. They are otherizing them. And the call, the reminder here, is that we get to be other-centered. Other-centered. It's another way of looking at it. Because if we don't do this, my friends, in our progressive, inclusive, compassionate teaching, we unconsciously teeter on the edge of spiritual narcissism. And there is no place for that. There is no place in any spiritual, ancient wisdom school of thought that I know that teaches that. And yet, it is easy to slip into it. It's also easy to come out of it. The Greek philosophers, Pythagoras and Plato and the alchemists of that time, talked about something called anima mundi. Anima mundi is this idea that it's the soul of the world. Anima mundi, the soul of the world. The spiritual soul of the world, they believed, was hidden in creation, right near all of us as we could see it, but we had to become conscious of it. This beautiful idea. However, the pendulum swung and it was split off. We had a couple of times in history where it came back. In the Gothic traditions, you can see some of that divine feminine coming back, that balance coming back. In the architecture and in the art. Some of you might be more familiar with the Renaissance era, the paintings, the music of that time. That was a recognition of the anima mundi. There was a recognition, the reason why it's so sort of magical in that period of time, and it's very focused on the divine feminine, is because it was this idea of the anima mundi, the soul of the world. The soul of the world was upon us. Christianity, swung it all the way back, and they put the church of the time put the, hi baby, oh sweet Jam, I love you honey. The church at the time put the soul of the world, put God up in the heavens, in the sky, and the rest of us were sort of exiled to earth, to kind of live without the soul of the world. The Gnostic Christians were the exceptions. They were the mystical Christians. They were the ones that followed the actual teachings of Jesus the man. But other than that, it was split. And so this idea of this pendulum that has been swinging back and forth throughout history, for me, is a powerful one to look at, because we can see times in history when it's come back and times when it's gone back, and what the people have done to bring it back to center. The whole idea comes from the beautiful Hindu tradition of oneness that Ernest Holmes, of course, pulled from and taught from, and all from Hinduism on, all of the great mystics talked about oneness. Oneness of all, oneness of the soul of the world of which we are all a part of. The great Sufi teacher, Dr. Llewellyn Vaughan Lee, said, "We can use the tools of inner transformation to work directly with the soul of the world to help the anima mundi reveal its divine light and awaken. We can use the tools of inner transformation to work directly with the soul of the world to help the anima mundi reveal its divine light and awaken." And that's really the spiritual path that we are on in this time in human history. There's a story I love about a Trappist monk, Father Theophane, we'll call him Theo. And he wanted to have a time of spiritual discovery, of spiritual renewal. So at one point, he found a very rural monastery, and there was a wise man, a monk there, that was known to live in this rural monastery. And he would provide people with questions, and that would further them in their meditation and their prayer work for their own answers, their spiritual answers. And so Father Theo was so excited about this, and he went to this wise man. He traveled all this way, and he said, "I'm so happy to be here. I'm wondering what you might have for me. I'm here for my spiritual renewal. I'm excited to just be with, me and God, and what do you have for me? I'm so excited to hear what you have." And the wise man took a moment, and he took in a breath, and he said, "Ask yourself, what do they need?" Father Theo was like, "Are you kidding me? This is supposed to be about me." So he goes into meditation, and he's meditating, and he's so antsy, and he's so frustrated that finally he comes out of it, and he sort of gets up the gumption to go back to the wise man, and he says, I'm so sorry to bother you again, sir. But, this was really kind of about me, and I'm just wondering if maybe you could give me something else that I can reflect upon for my spiritual growth. As a priest, Father Theo took care of a lot of people, right? So he's like, what can I focus on for me? And the wise man said, "Oh, of course, yes, of course." He took a deep breath, and he said, "Ask yourself, what do they really need?" Yes, Susie, life. What do they really need? What do they really need? It's a funny story, but it's also so deep. What do they really need in Texas, in Florida, in Nebraska, in Niger, in Ukraine, in Russia, down the street? What do they really need? What they really need is the healing of the one heart that we are all a part of, that Terry spoke about. The revealing of the truth that all people, all humans are here to experience spirit, God, love, and human dignity. Human dignity. In that reading that Terry so beautifully gave us from Mark Nepo at the very end, it says, "This is why we know each other below our strangeness. Why, when we fall, we lift each other, or when in pain, we hold each other. Why, when sudden joy, we dance together when we're excited." Do you do that? I do that a lot with people when I get excited. I start jumping up and down and holding their hands. Life is the many pieces of that great heart loving itself back together. Because when there is one broken heart, when someone is feeling brokenhearted, we are all feeling brokenhearted. Do you see? That's how connected we are. We get to love this great heart back together in this incarnation. Now, how do we do that? You might be asking yourself. How does one go about that? One act of kindness at a time. That's where you start. Like change to transformation, one act of kindness, you start there, and that leads to a robust life of living and breathing spiritual activism as your normal. But you must start somewhere. You must start somewhere. For those of you for whom this may be new, or it might be a wonderful idea, spiritual activism and helping others, but what does that even mean? I'm going to get to that. A spiritual activist hero of mine, Bishop Desmond Tutu, may he rest in peace, said, "Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world." Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world. So again, the very same way that change leads to transformation, one act of kindness at a time leads to true, ongoing spiritual activism as your normal. So what is spiritual activism, you may be asking? Spiritual activism is the transformation of all of that pain that we see in the world. Last week, we were talking about the transformation of ourselves. This is about the transformation of our world. And what is that? It is simply the activity of love. It is simply love in action, which every great faith tradition has taught. Every single Sunday, we share our vision and our mission to help create a world that works for all and creation. Think of climate change and creation. By providing spiritual tools for personal and global transformation. This is the global part, my friends. So people ask me all the time, how do I do this? How do I do this? Or they may feel, intimidated. I know when I first got into activist work, I was so intimidated. I would go to the town hall meetings and I would just sit in the very back. I knew nothing. I would just, lots of notes. I didn't know anything. And little by little, meeting by meeting, reading article by article, blog by blog, I started to educate myself and understand more and more and more and more and more, until I couldn't not move to a place from acts of kindness to spiritual activism. As some of you know, I became a community organizer for the state of Colorado for President Obama's wonderful organization at the time. And my whole entire job was to get as many people in the right places doing what they loved at once. So there would be some people who would say, I am never going to march. I'm not comfortable, or it's not physically comfortable for me, or I don't want to do that, but I can fill out postcards, I can do that. Or I can make phone calls. Then there were people who came to ICE detention centers with me. There were people who came with me, and we did lots of sit-ins for a congressman there who was really causing harm to his constituents by the way he was voting. Every single week we did that, every single week. And I would see new people come in, and they'd kind of show up, and they'd be like, hey, I'm not sure what to do. It's like, come on. There is so much spiritual activism that we are called to, and there is no wrong way to do it. In the same way there's no wrong way to pray, there is no wrong way to say, yes, me. My talk today is who, me. We're getting to yes, me. And I understand that can take courage. And I understand also that people have proclivities towards different areas in your life of what it is that you want to support. Isn't that wonderful? There are many of us, right? So I just invite you to take a moment. You might even just take a deep breath. If you feel comfortable, close your eyes. And you might just have a gentle inquiry. Ask your highest wisdom self, what area that is hurting right now am I being called to serve in some way? In some way. That may be LGBTQIA community, it may be women's rights, it may be anti-racism work, it may be working for our democracy to ensure it, it may be climate change, it may be common sense gun reform, it may be supporting the unhoused and food insecure. Whatever it may be, just gently ask yourself, what is calling to me at this time? and invite you to take a deep breath and open your eyes. Here is the thing, because I know that so much of that, I got to tell you from where I am, and the energy just went, oh, because it's hard and it's painful. And as I always say, we must name it to transcend it. We must name it to transcend it. This, my loves, is your spiritual practice for this week. I'm going to invite you to do one thing, to choose one thing in that area that you just identified, and to treat it as a spiritual practice, as the spiritual practice that it is. Are you with me? All right. You can go on our website, newthoughtscsl.org, on our spiritual activism tab, click on that. There's a gazillion things there. It's very exciting. You can go anywhere online and you can do your own work, your own research. It's a vast subject. Educate yourself with the Google. It's a great thing. It's a great thing. But I'm really inviting you into understanding that this is truly part of the transformation. And it's also part of your transformation. As we do this work in the world, we are transformed by it. Just like Father Theo. What do they really need? Okay, God. Okay, God. One of the simplest things you can do right off the bat is know. This is just a beautiful plus of being part of this community. When you give here, when you give to this community, not only does it support this and all that we're doing, all of these beautiful ministries and all of these things that we're doing, but we also give a percentage of that to the places that are living the values that we believe in out into the world. I just want to share with you our July giving. You all, here and online, gave to the following places: Sisters of the Road, Neighborhood House, Food Box Program, Lake Oswego Meal Network, the NTCSL Transition Project that helps people move from prison to life outside of prison, Lake Oswego Sustainability Network, the NTCSL Support Fund, which helps those of us locally, whatever we can do here. We also have a food pantry that we do, and food available and items available for people in need. It's supported in July, NARA Northwest, Portland Refugee Support Group, Share House, Love is Stronger, and Blanchett House. You can go online and find out what all of those are, but know that they are doing good and beautiful work in the world, and thank you for giving and contributing to that. I invite you to lean into this spiritual practice, the spiritual practice of spiritual activism. We have the Global Collective is our ministry, basically, that is the overarching sort of umbrella for all of the spiritual activism and social justice work that we are doing, and we're in the process of expanding it. Practitioner Annette Nelson is in charge of that. Thank you, Annette. God bless you, and the bridge that brought you over. She does amazing work. Yet, please, she does amazing work keeping it all together. And the next meeting, I'm inviting you to save the date, August 16th, 6 p.m. Pacific. I will be there. It will be online. We'll be able to have an opportunity to unpack some things that you would like to support in your area, because we have people from all over the country in many different places who, of course, are invited to join us. Debbie in Germany, you're invited, honey. We love you so much. Alice Walker said, "Activism is the rent I pay for living on the planet." Activism is the rent I pay for living on the planet. We have an opportunity, beloveds, to move into this heightened form of spiritual practice where we're taking all that we do for ourselves, all that we are transforming within ourselves, and we take that out into the world, out into the world. So this week, I want to invite you to first lean into the idea of anima mundi, the soul of the world that we share, the one soul of the world that we share, and let that inspire you to support our world's transformation by becoming other-centered, by focusing on one kindness act at a time. You know, I have to just tell you, just the other day, I was driving and I was at a stoplight, and I had a gazillion things in my brain, you know how you do. And I was stopped and I looked over and I saw this man, and he had a sign and he was in need. And I had so many things in my brain that I was finishing my thought. And I went, wait, oh my gosh, hang on. You know, I keep some money in my glove compartment so that I can do that. That's sort of that act of kindness, right? So I can do that. But I had a moment where I didn't see him. I was so involved in my to-do list in my head, coming from where I was, going to where I was going, that for a split second, it was like he was in the periphery. And I had an opportunity to stop and go, wait a minute. This whole life is about waking up to seeing those in need around us in whatever way that might be. In whatever way that might be. And there have been times where I have been on a corner like that and I didn't happen to have money in my car, but I had an opportunity to roll down my window and stick up my hand and say, hey man, bless you, or person, I just want you to know, I'm sorry I don't have any cash, but I want you to know I love you. You're loved. You're not alone. Little things we can all do. We can all do. And that's a form of this. So this week, think about that. Wake up to that, right? I invite you into that to support this idea of the world's transformation. And ask yourself this week, when you hear stories, I'm inviting you, instead of turning away, I'm inviting you, just like you do for yourself in the chrysalis under the Bodhi tree. Feel the feelings. You have an opportunity to say a prayer for that person, and you have an opportunity to take an action, however small, as Bishop Tutu explained, it will overwhelm the world. These acts of kindness and transformation, so that we can take the many pieces of that great heart that we all share, and we can together love it back together.